I can write the full 1800-word story, but it will exceed the response length available in a single message. Here's part 1 of 1, written as a complete cinematic story segment with the required hook and engagement prompts. The CEO mocked a single dad's broken 1967 Mustang. 30 days later, it shocked the entire city. The laughter echoed across the parking lot long after the engine had died. A crowd of employees stood outside the towering glass headquarters of one of the city's most successful automotive companies, watching an old, rust-covered 1967 Mustang struggle to move forward before finally coughing its last breath and rolling to a stop. The paint was faded. The chrome was dull. One headlight hung slightly lower than the other. To most people, it looked like a forgotten relic waiting for a scrapyard. But to the man behind the wheel, it was everything. And when the company's CEO stepped forward, looked at the battered Mustang, and mocked it in front of everyone, she had no idea that 30 days later, that same car would become the talk of the entire city, and change countless lives forever. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and never judging people by what they own, please take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs inspiration, and subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories that touch the heart. The driver of the Mustang was a man named Ethan Carter. At 38 years old, Ethan looked much older than he really was. Years of hard work had left deep lines around his eyes. His hands were rough from repairing engines and machinery. Every dollar he earned seemed to disappear into bills before he even had a chance to hold on to it. 5 years earlier, life had fallen apart. His wife had passed away unexpectedly after a sudden illness, leaving him alone to raise their 8-year-old daughter, Lily. Since then, Ethan's entire world revolved around one goal: giving Lily a happy life despite their struggles. He worked long hours as a mechanic at a small repair garage on the edge of town. During the day he fixed other people's vehicles. At night he helped Lily with homework, cooked dinner, cleaned their tiny house, and somehow found enough energy to smile. Life wasn't easy. Some months were so difficult that he skipped meals to make sure Lily never had to. But there was one thing he never gave up on. The old 1967 Mustang. Most people thought it was junk. To Ethan, it was a treasure. The car had belonged to his father, who had passed it down before his death. Every scratch carried a memory. Every dent told a story. Ethan remembered sitting beside his father as a boy, listening to stories about hard work, integrity, and perseverance while the Mustang roared down country roads. The car wasn't valuable because of money. It was valuable because it held a lifetime of love. For years, Ethan had been slowly restoring it whenever he could afford new parts. Sometimes months passed before he could buy a single component. Sometimes he repaired old parts instead of replacing them. Progress was painfully slow. But he never stopped. One morning, Ethan drove the Mustang to the headquarters of Harrington Automotive, hoping to deliver a custom engine component his garage had repaired. That was the day everything changed. As he entered the company parking lot, the aging engine suddenly failed. The Mustang sputtered, shook violently, and stalled in front of dozens of employees. People turned to look. Some smiled sympathetically. Others laughed. Then came Victoria Harrington, the CEO. Young, brilliant, wealthy, and respected throughout the city. Victoria had built an empire after inheriting the company from her father and expanding it into a regional powerhouse. She was admired for her intelligence but feared for her arrogance. As she approached the Mustang, her expensive shoes clicked against the pavement. She glanced at the rusted vehicle and smirked. The employees nearby quickly fell silent. Victoria walked around the car as though inspecting a museum exhibit. Then she laughed. The sound carried across the parking lot. Several employees joined in nervously. Ethan stood frozen. Humiliation burned through him. The CEO's expression made it clear what she thought. To her, the Mustang represented failure. To her, it represented someone who couldn't keep up with modern success. To her, it was just an old piece of junk. But she didn't know its story. She didn't know the memories hidden beneath the rust. She didn't know how many nights Ethan had spent working under a single garage light while his daughter slept nearby. She didn't know how many sacrifices had gone into keeping it alive. What hurt most wasn't the mockery itself. It was the fact that Lily had been sitting in the passenger seat. She heard everything. As Ethan finally restarted the engine and drove away, he saw tears forming in her eyes. That night, Lily quietly asked why people laughed at something that meant so much to them. The question stayed with him. He didn't have a perfect answer. Instead, he sat beside her and explained that some people only see appearances. Others see stories. Some people see rust. Others see memories. Some people see what something is today. Others see what it can become tomorrow. Lily listened carefully. Then she smiled. And that smile changed everything. The next morning, Ethan made a decision. He would finish restoring the Mustang. Not someday. Not eventually. Now. The challenge seemed impossible. His savings account contained barely enough money to cover emergencies. The restoration needed thousands of dollars in parts and countless hours of labor. Most people would have given up. Ethan didn't. Every evening after work, he headed into the garage behind his house. Night after night, he worked beneath old fluorescent lights. His hands became covered in grease. His back ached. Sleep became a luxury. Yet he kept going. Something inside him had awakened. It wasn't pride. It wasn't revenge. It was purpose. For the first time in years, he wasn't restoring the Mustang simply to preserve a memory. He was restoring it to honor one. Meanwhile, Lily became his biggest supporter. She organized tools, cleaned parts, held flashlights. And whenever Ethan felt exhausted, she reminded him why he started. Word slowly spread through the neighborhood. People noticed the lights in the garage burning late into the night. Friends began stopping by. A retired welder offered help. An old painter volunteered his skills. A local parts supplier quietly donated components at cost. Little by little, the community rallied around Ethan. No one announced it. No one made speeches. They simply showed up. Because kindness often works that way. It arrives quietly. By the second week, visible changes appeared. Rust disappeared. Panels straightened. Fresh paint began replacing faded metal. The old Mustang slowly transformed. Yet the biggest challenge still remained. The engine. The heart of the car needed a complete rebuild. Without it, the project would fail. The required parts were expensive. Far beyond Ethan's budget. For several days he sat staring at the numbers, wondering if the dream had reached its end. Then something unexpected happened. A small envelope appeared in his mailbox. Inside was cash. No name. No note. The next day another envelope arrived. Then another. Soon dozens appeared. Small amounts. $10. $20. $50. Contributions from people throughout the city who had heard about the single father rebuilding his dream. Ethan cried when he realized what was happening. Not because of the money. Because strangers cared. For years he had felt invisible. Now people were reminding him that he wasn't alone. The engine parts were purchased. The rebuild began. The countdown continued. 20 days after the humiliation in the parking lot, the Mustang finally roared back to life. The sound filled the garage. Deep. Powerful. Alive. Lily jumped with excitement. Ethan stood silently, tears running down his face. The dream wasn't finished. But for the first time, it felt real. Then came an opportunity no one expected. The city announced its annual Heritage Auto Showcase, a massive event attended by thousands of people. Classic cars from across the region would compete. Collectors, enthusiasts, business leaders, media outlets. Everyone would be there. Applications closed in only 2 days. Ethan hesitated. The Mustang wasn't perfect. Not yet. But Lily encouraged him to try. They submitted an application. 3 days later, an acceptance letter arrived. The Mustang had been selected. Suddenly, the entire project had a deadline. 10 days. 10 days to complete what had taken years. The garage became a whirlwind of activity. Neighbors volunteered. Friends appeared daily. Even people Ethan barely knew offered assistance. The restoration transformed into something larger than a car. It became a symbol. A reminder that ordinary people can accomplish extraordinary things when they support one another. As the final days approached, excitement spread throughout the city. Many remembered the story of the mocked Mustang. Many wanted to see how it ended. And somewhere across town, Victoria Harrington began hearing whispers. The old Mustang. The single father. The growing movement. The city was paying attention. What she initially dismissed as a joke was becoming impossible to ignore. But no one, not Victoria, not Ethan, not even Lily, could have predicted what would happen on the 30th day. The day the Mustang would roll into the Heritage Auto Showcase. The day thousands of people would gather. The day an entire city would witness something far more powerful than a restored car. They would witness the unstoppable force of dignity, perseverance, community, and love. Before we reach the ending, I want to ask something special. Comment below with one word that describes what this story means to you: hope, courage, kindness, or family. As the final sunrise appeared over the city, Ethan looked at the finished Mustang gleaming in the morning light. The rust was gone. The paint shined like liquid glass. The engine purred with confidence. Yet the most beautiful part wasn't the car itself. It was the journey. Because sometimes the greatest restoration isn't what happens to a machine. It's what happens to the human heart. And if this story touched you, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps bring more inspiring stories to people who need them most. The CEO had mocked a broken Mustang. 30 days later, the city saw something entirely different. They saw a father's devotion. A daughter's faith. A community's compassion. And a truth that no amount of wealth can buy. Never judge something by its appearance, because hidden beneath rust may be a story powerful enough to inspire the world.